Welcome to Tuna Theory, the channel where science dives deep, true stories get untangled, inventions spark your imagination, theories to unhook, and weird things will get even weirder, weirder than your neighbor. This episode is about the shadow people. They are known to be seen in broad daylight, at night, and in dreams. Children and adults who suffer from sleep paralysis are known to be attacked by the shadow people. They have been known to scare, stare, and warn of dangers. Many will describe one as wearing a wide-brimmed hat with red eyes. They come in different forms and sizes. The following are accounts from different people all over the world. I was driving to a job site at night with my coworkers. One was in the passenger seat and the other two were behind us in a different vehicle. I was driving on the freeway when I saw a black figure climbing a streetlight. It had a long torso, about twice as long as it should be. It was about halfway up the pole climbing like a monkey would. My coworker in the passenger seat saw it too. When we got to the job site, my coworker told the workers in the other vehicle. They saw it too. We were all shocked. I had a shadow people experience as a teenager. I lived in Texas at the time, near a municipal airport, and we were renting a property with acres of field attached to it. I don't remember why I was outside this late at night given it was a little over 10 years ago, but I was about to head inside when I heard a rustle behind the house, which was to my left. I turned to look and saw a solid black, human-shaped figure, maybe about 4 feet tall, running away from the house and into the fields. It passed through a spot we had fencing in, and I stared at it for probably close to 5 seconds before it vanished. I felt like it probably saw me and got spooked, because that's the only time I've seen anything haul ass the way it did. I've always believed that there's more to reality than what we can physically see, but that kind of confirmed it for me. It moved way too fast to be human, and its hands weren't visible. They tapered off and vanished. I was woke by experiencing weight on my chest, and then I saw a shadow, like a woman, but no clear feature. I was scared for some seconds, but I was able to cool myself, but the shadow was still there. And you might found it funny, but now I was not scared instead. I was angry because there is something on top of my chest and is not moving, and I can't move at all. But I was calm and tried to move my body, but I can't. But then I felt that I can move a little bit of my lower body, and I was smiling looking at the shadow, and then it slipped to my left side and I felt it was sliding. It was like a rigid object, and then it disappeared, and I was able to move, and I was laughing at what I experienced. But at first 5 seconds I felt intense fear, that's true too, and second time I was not even scared. Everything was same, except there was no fear. This time I try to move my arm to touch it, but I can't. But I was able to move my lower body and it disappeared. I've experienced these shadow people 3 times in my life. The second encounter was terrifying. I was in a deep depression after losing 3 family members in a short period of time. I was looking for answers. I read Jung's Workman and his Symbols, Red Book, and other texts like Kundalini and books on consciousness and alchemical texts. At around 3 a.m., a shadow person woke me trying to creep up on me in my sleep. When it saw I was awake, it suddenly knelt on my back and I felt an immense sense of sleepiness. I heard my partner whisper, "It's okay, babe, go back to sleep," but my partner was at work that night. It was this thing trying to trick me to go back to sleep. I was trying to stand up but couldn't. The shadow then laughed and said that it hadn't tricked me. It had a knife and played with it into my right palm. I felt pain and managed to push up and it disappeared. I saw I had a cut on my hand. I actually showed my mom the next day, and she joked saying it looked like a stigmata and asked how I hurt myself. I told her what happened and she didn't believe me. Not long after that, I then saw the Hat Man in a lucid dream. I think maybe the Hat Man hunts whatever these things are, but others have said that it's attacked them. Hit subscribe to join the Tuna Theory tribe. Give this video a big thumbs up if it reeled you in, and share it with your friends who love a good deep dive into the strange, wild, and wonderful. In my early 20s, while I was attending college, I had experienced this phenomenon for about a month. I would fall asleep and would experience sleep paralysis 3 to 4 times in a night. I began to fear going to sleep. The scary part is it did not matter whether the light was on or off. The experience was still the same. The odd part about this experience is that when I would fall asleep somehow, I would end up on the left side of my bed. Almost always. The shadow would manifest in the corner of my room. I knew I was not dreaming because items in the room were in the same position. I left them in. The shadow would hover over to the left side of my bed. I was petrified. I could not move or cry out for help. I could not muster a sound. It would put its arm over me. I could not make out fingers or distinguish any further details that would give definition to what I was seeing. The closer the arm got, the more terrified I became. I would begin to hear this deep humming sound rising in frequency until my head felt like it was going to explode. I felt like the sound was accompanied by a seizure. My body felt like it was convulsing, but from the inside, the sound grew to such a discomforting level my consciousness would phase out. And on some occasions I would wake back up into the partial awake state with the shadow. It happened in my own bedroom in my apartment during the day. My room was bright as the sun shone with piercing rays through my blinds. Then suddenly the sun seemed to be dampened and my room became darker. Or did my vision become darker? I'm not sure. As the room darkened, I felt an increasing feeling of tiredness overwhelm me, and I immediately fell asleep on my bed. Within what felt like seconds, I remember drifting off and suddenly panic took over as I began to choke. Fighting for my breath, I opened my eyes and saw someone looking down at me. Its eyes were white with deep, dark pupils that looked endless. Its head had no lines, as if my eyes could not comprehend. As it gazed upon me with its sinister eyes and a shadow of a body, I was paralyzed. My petrified body could not physically fight back, and I overcame it with panic. While struggling, my fear quickly turned to determination, and my will broke through this enthralling gaze, and I grabbed a hold of its hands around my neck. Its eyes showed shock, and in less than a second it had retreated, and as the traces of its form left my room, the light chased the shadows from my room. All the hair just went up on my arm when you mentioned a pressure demon. My wife says I stopped breathing, but in my waking dream I saw a black entity jumping off my chest. And then the dream of this thing was suffocating me. I did not tell my wife until nearly a year or so later, when she told me that she saw a shadow walking in the house. Consequently, I saw the same thing right where she described them. I have absolutely seen a shadow figure both during the day and at night, while lucid and sober. It was so bizarre I still don't know what to think, but I know what I saw. Interestingly, the figure was as crisp as a silhouette, like one of the leaning cowboy decorations. But less benign, it was in my direct field of vision. I would have thought it was a Halloween decoration if it weren't in my backyard. I think about it frequently, but I was not afraid. I was gardening at night with a high-power exterior light, which made it even more alarming. The other time was during the day while remodeling an old home. It was slightly blurry, but I saw it nonetheless. Saw a shadow person in a military barracks in the early 90s. My roommate was asleep, and it was standing at the end of the beds with red eyes. I was scrambling and struggling to find the light switch on the nightstand while feeling the scariest, oppressing, evil feeling I have felt in my life. When I found the light switch, it was gone, and the feeling was gone. My roommate works up, and we checked the room to make sure there was nobody else in the room. Never felt pure terror and dread like that since in my life. I found out about shadow people and sleep paralysis years later. Nothing bad was going on at that point in my life. Never seen it again. You can have some pure fear and adrenaline moments in the military, but nothing topped this experience. I saw a solid black figure brisk walk right to left of the bay window in broad daylight. It moved very fast, but I definitely saw it. My ex-girlfriend also saw it twice. The first time at dusk, it came from the carport into the back laundry door while she was by the washing line. Her black Pomeranian saw it and barked at it. The second time, she was having a bath. The bathroom door was fully open. It came from the carport again, but this time through the side entrance into the unit down the hallway and stood at the bathroom doorway. The bathroom door moved halfway and stopped. When my husband and I moved to a new flat in Scotland, we immediately felt that there was something wrong with that place. There was some strange activity, things falling off the bookcase and landing on a sofa half a meter away. Our 2-year-old son would stare at the empty corridor and talk to someone, something, etc. But one night, I heard my husband struggling to breathe, like he was having a bad dream, and tried to scream. I woke him up and he told me he had a nightmare with a tall figure wearing a wide-brimmed hat and long black coat. That was 13 years ago and he still remembers it. When I was around 7, a shadow person started coming out of my closet. I told my parents and they said it was just a nightmare, but then it kept happening every single night for 3 years. It never hurt me. It would just walk out of my closet, cross my room, and disappear out a wall. Because of this, I eventually got used to it. There was never any sleep paralysis that I remember. I had told my parents multiple times about it, but they never believed me. These were very firm disbelievers in the paranormal. Finally, one night when I was 10, the shadow person started its nightly walk. I lay there watching it, waiting for it to disappear so I could go back to sleep. That was one thing about it. No matter how deeply asleep I was, I would always wake up right before it appeared. Anyways, I waited, but then as it got even with the foot of my bed, it stopped. Then it turned its entire body and looked at me. I don't remember a face, just glowing yellow eyes. By this time, I was used to the being and had stopped being scared of it, but as soon as it looked at me, pure terror shot through me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Finally, it went away. I went running to my parents' room and told them that I was never stepping foot in that room again. I was hysterical. They finally agreed, and for the next 5 years until we moved, I never went back in that room. I've seen shadow people too many times to count, and now they don't bother me. All my children have seen them, as have my grandchildren. When I was little, I used to see shadow people often. I had trouble staying asleep at night, so I would wake up pretty frequently. Sometimes I would see them moving around my room near the walls. They never scared me, but I remember one that always terrified me. Even to this day, thinking about it, I get chills. This was one large figure that I saw a handful of times, but one time sticks in my memory the most. It was huge, and it would stand over me when I was asleep. I could feel it before I saw it and would be afraid to open my eyes, but I did anyway. It bent itself down over me and I couldn't move or scream. It was completely black, no light eyes or anything, and shaped like a person with head, shoulders, and arms. When I closed my eyes again and reopened them a few seconds later, it was gone. This was the only one that scared me like that. I'd also see smaller shadow people, usually the same night as the scary one, later on after its appearance. They would sometimes be tiny, maybe half a foot tall. I'd see them moving around on the edge of my bed and sometimes across my arms if they were very, very small, but I could see them clearly because they were so close. The feeling was totally opposite of the scary one. I felt happy and safe watching them until I fell asleep. I haven't seen shadow people in a long time. I miss seeing the little ones that made me feel a strange contentment and happiness, but I don't miss the big one at all. It still scares me to this day. I've told a few people this story. I don't think most of them believe me, but it is 100% the truth, and I'll never forget the feelings it gave me. I was 100% awake when I saw this shadow being. At that time, I was going to sleep around 7 p.m. and waking in between 2-4 a.m. I had already walked down the hall, and I'm 100% sure of what I saw. A very tall, thin shadow was walking very quickly down my hallway, turning his head to look at me when he passed the bathroom. I know what I saw. Thanks for tuning into Tuna Theory, where the ordinary gets flipped and the extraordinary gets explained. Keep your fins sharp and your minds sharper. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the depths.